What's up guys, today we're going to be going over common finger tricks you should know for speed cubing. I'm sure most of you who watch my channel already know a lot of these, but I get a lot of emails on my website talking about how I should make a video going over the basic finger tricks because there's not really anything up to date that I'm aware of. So I'm going to go over all the finger tricks that I think you should know if you're going to be doing speed solves. So one thing I forgot to mention when I recorded this is that your thumbs should both be on front. This is your home grip. Your hands are going to naturally return to this state, and this is where you should naturally pick up the cube. This allows you to do the most amount of turns from one grip. All right, so we're going to go over the obvious ones first. So for U and U prime, you're just going to do this, just like these. These are how you're going to do all your common turns, sexy move, anything. You're going to be using these fingers just like this. So that's fairly self-explanatory. And then for things like R, you're just moving your wrist up and down. Same for L. R2, I would grip the bottom or the top, depends on the algorithm that you're doing. In the case of this G perm, I would grip from the top first, but there are times where I would start from the bottom. So either way, same thing for L2. Same thing. Now we'll do D moves. So the most common ways to do D moves are just with your ring fingers on the bottom. So D prime would be like this. Your ring finger in the back goes like this, and D just like this. Now for D2, you can do a double flick with your ring and pinky. It depends on which hand you want to use. You can use either. I personally use my left hand because I learned to do double flicks for R2 for one-handed with my left hand because I'm a left-handed solver. So I do D2 flicks on the left side, but I know lots of people who do it with the right. It is purely preference, but I do left. So it goes like this. And anytime you need to do a D2, I would just go like that. So a lot of cases like that is for cross. When your cross is offset by D2, you can do just like that. An example of where I would do a D2 is this A perm right here. I would do the AUG and then ring, pinky, ring, pinky. Fast, it looks like this. And now some people do it with pinky ring. I personally can't do that. If one is more comfortable for you than the other, they're both fine. A lot of people do pinky ring, but I personally learned doing ring pinky. All right, so one more that I forgot to mention is the push D move. I mostly do this with my left hand, but it's a really useful finger trick to use. As you can see in the E perm here, I use it to push. Instead of alternating between hands, I can just use one finger, and it makes the E perm really fast. Now for U2, you actually want to be able to do this with both of your hands. It's extremely useful for AUGs. So for a righty U2, you will do a normal flick, and then followed by your middle finger. So pointer, middle. Looks like this, and there's lots of AUGs where you would use this. And it's the same thing with your left hand. Like I said, you want to be able to do it with both hands. This is really important, I think. Left hand, same thing. Pointer, middle. So now here's an example of where I would use a lefty double flick. It's for this R perm. So R prime, righty U2 double flick. And then I would do lefty U2 double flick and then finish the AUG. So fast, it looks like this. And now a reason you would want to be able to do both double flicks is for AUGs such as this G perm right here, where you have the bar over here. I would do a righty flick here, righty, lefty, just like that. So it's good to be able to trade off to give one hand a break. Now, a not very common finger trick that you'll see, but there are some people who do it. I personally don't. I don't really know where I would use it, but you can do this, where your pointer starts on the back and pushes all the way around like this. Same thing with left. I know there are people who do this. I'm not personally one of them, and I don't know where I would use it, but there are people who do this. Now we're going to go over F moves. There's a lot of different ways to do F moves. The most common way that you're going to see F done is like this. Instead of being at your home grip like this, you'll regrip and go like this. That's the most common way for F. You can also do it with your left thumb like this. And there are cases where I use both. Here's the thing. There's lots of different ways to do finger tricks, and don't get stuck on only doing one. Use whatever's best for the situation. So there are times where I'm going to do left thumb like this, and there are times where I'm going to want to do this. In the example of a Y perm, I would rather do this for the F move than this, because it just doesn't lead into the rest of the AUG very well. So in that case, I would rather do this. Now for F prime, there's a couple ways to do this as well. You can do it with your thumb like this. Which is very common. A lot of people use it. So in the example of this OLL right here, finish with your thumb like that. And now another way you can do F prime is with your left index like this. There's a lot of people who don't do this, and I think this is actually an extremely underrated finger trick, and I think it's really important. So for me personally, when I do this OLL, I don't use my thumb. I used to, but now I use my left index like that. And now the thing with this finger trick is there's a lot of times where, in the case of like a J perm, I can do it really easily because my thumb is stabilizing on the bottom. But for AUGs, like this OLL right here, you need to keep your pinky on the bottom, stabilizing between these two right here so the layers don't misalign. So if I keep my pinky on the back and I do it, the middle layer misaligns. But if I do it with my pinky on the bottom now, the middle layer stays aligned. So it's important to learn to do it with your pinky here. But there are AUGs such as the J perm, where your pinky doesn't need to be on bottom because your thumb is stabilizing. Same thing for a Y perm. So if I go here, and now I would do F prime right here, my thumb is at the bottom stabilizing. So it's not exclusive that your pinky needs to be down here for this finger trick, but if you want to expand it more, your pinky does need to be on the bottom. And this finger trick opens up a whole lot of possibilities. You can use it for the Y perm at the end. So I use it here, and then I do it at the end. You could do it for this OLL right here. And there's whole tons more. I mean, the list is really never ending, and I think this is an extremely important finger trick that a lot of people really underestimate. A lot of people just don't learn it because it's a little bit tricky. It's how I learned from the start, and I think it's an extremely useful finger trick. Now, there are other times where I would do an F prime with my thumb like this, and one of those examples is the T perm. So if I do it slowly, I would do it right at the ending. My thumb is already right here and ready to push up. So it doesn't really make sense for me to try and have this down here and then pull like that. It just makes more sense for me to use my thumb just like that. So this is another way to do an F prime. Now, another way that I personally don't think is extremely useful, but like I said, there's pretty much a scenario for every single finger trick, is doing F prime like this. There's not many people who do this. There's a couple, but I personally don't think it's that useful. You can do a J perm kind of like that. Honestly, I can't think of many uses for this finger trick, but I'm not going to say it's pointless. I think it probably does have a use, but I haven't seen many for it. Now, if you want to do an F2, you can just do the same thing as you do for a U2, except instead of being here, you would regrip and do F2 like that. An example of this, again, is this G perm. This is pretty much the best example for double flicks. I would do an R2, starting from the top, notice, with my thumb on top instead of on the bottom. So on top, And then my hand is right here already, and I would do F2, just like that. So R2, F2. So another way that you can do an F move, which isn't very common but can be done very quickly, is taking your right thumb and pulling down from the top. Like this. It's not super common, but when done right, it can be done very fast. Examples of people who are good at this are Colin Burns and Jay McDeal. So this OLL is a really good example of where you could use it. So you would go down and then up with your thumb. So down, up with thumb. So here we go. Fast, looks like that. Okay, now next up we have B moves. B moves are a little bit tricky. There's not a lot of AUGs with B moves, but there are various ways you can do this. So for this AUG in particular, what I do is this. So I push right here, and notice, so I'm gonna go up from my home grip, push, and now my finger in the back, my index finger, is ready to push. So in this case, I can do a B prime, just by pushing. But my hand just happens to be set up for it in that case, so push. And now to do B, when I go this way, it's already there, so I can just kind of flick. So if I set that back up again, B prime, and now to do B, my finger is already back here, so I can just go B and then R prime. So that's how I do Bs for that. There's kind of a lot of different ways to do it. It kind of just depends where your hand is set up. You can also regrip and put your thumb on bottom and do it with your back ring finger like this. But really, there's not a lot of cases where you're going to be doing B moves, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But you have this. You have pushes if your hand is back there, so push like this. So that's pretty much B moves. And if you're going to do a B2, it's the same thing as an F2. You would just reach from here to the back and do a double flick. But you're probably not going to encounter many AUGs with a B2. Now we're going to go over M moves, and we'll go over M prime first. You should be able to do this with both of your hands. And I personally like to do M moves with my ring finger like this, and I can do it with both hands. So it's good to be able to do M prime with both. And the reason you want to use your ring fingers instead of like your middle finger, I've seen some people who use their middle finger. If I use my middle finger, this finger has to come down to the back, and now I can't do U prime as easy. The cube is a bit unstable because I have my hand is coming off the cube. If you use your ring fingers, both of your pointers on top are still available when you use your ring finger in the back. So that's why I would use my ring instead of middle. Another way that you can do M that's somewhat popular is you can go like this. You can do more of an L prime kind of thing. So you can kind of just do that and then grab the bottom and bring this up, both layers up like that. Some people will do M2 like that as well. So if I did an H perm. This isn't as popular anymore. You won't see a lot of this, but there are still people who do that. Now going over M, there's a couple different ways you can do that. You could do it how I just demonstrated, where you go up and then down. I kind of do any of those. It really depends on where my hand is, so you can do it from above like that. I personally wouldn't recommend doing that very frequently, and then you can always do it from the bottom where you push like that. So now an example of doing an M move and M prime would be this OLL from the back right here. So first I would do M by pushing like that, U, M prime, U2, M, U, M prime. Now fast it would look like this. Now M2s are basically the same type of thing as D2. You're pretty much gonna pick one hand to do it with. Most people just stick to one. I personally use my left hand again, so how you're gonna do it. Is you're going to use your ring finger first and then middle. So ring, middle, ring, middle. Just like this. So I flick with my left hand, and where you would use this is for something like an MU U-perm. So double flick, push for the M, U2, M prime, U, double flick M2 again. And now, like I said, people do this with their right hand as well, but I can't do it with my right hand. I can only do it with my left. This is very good for the MU peel outs, especially something like a Z perm. So double flick, U, double flick, U, M prime, U2, double flick for the M2, U2, M prime again. So you can see this hand is pretty much just going back and forth like this. So there you guys go. That should cover all the basic finger tricks you need to know for speed cubing. This didn't have every single finger trick you could do, but I mostly just wanted this to be the basics. You can kind of figure out different finger tricks from watching other people's solves. So if you're ever wondering how someone does something, check out their solves, and if you can't tell fast, maybe ask them to make a video and maybe they will. I hope this helped you guys out, and I'll see you later.